right, this is the podcast. How are you guys?
Great.
I should introduce who I have in here with me. I have got my name is Bo Matthews. I'm the Senior Vice President of Programming here at iHeartMedia. And this is my wife, Tina. Say hi.
Hello.
And we've got Joe Strecker, who I consider the inspiration for all of this, for me at least.
Hey, how's it going?
Joe, what do you do here at the radio station?
I am the executive producer of the 55 KRC morning show, and I also am the kind of jack of all trades for 55 KRC. So.
Yeah. So, Joe, and I need to tell you, I've been here for 3 years, and Joe, when I first got here, he was just a bigger guy, and I would see him kind of around the hallways, and we don't interact every day. And then over the course of time, I noticed this guy melting.
Yes.
and finally, and like I said, we don't really interact every day because our jobs, while we're kind of working down at the same end of the building, you never really talk to each other. And then I talked to Joe one day, and I said, "Can you come in here for a second? What are you doing?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I need to know what you're doing because you're half the person I saw walking around the halls before."
Exactly.
And he kind of told me about your wellness center, and that's when I was like, okay, if you can do this, and I know that later in the podcast we're going to talk about how much, but the first thing I did was say, hey, how much did you lose? And how much did you lose at that time, probably?
Oh, boy, I was at about 150, 60 pounds when we first talked.
That's amazing. Okay, so then I get that information, I go home to my wife, and I go, hey, I've tried 100 different things.
We both have.
We both tried all these different things. I don't have nearly as much weight to lose as Joe, but if he can do this, I'm doing this because this guy just murdered it.
That's exactly what happened.
And that was, so you are my inspiration for the first, I'm telling you right now, for the first time I've ever stuck to anything, you are the reason. And whenever I tell anybody about the diet and they ask me, I mention you.
Yeah, you're part of the story for
You're
sure.
welcome. You're welcome.
You are part of the, no, you are seriously part of the story. And that's the interesting thing. And I, what we're doing is I wanted to do this podcast because when I met with the people at your wellness center and they asked hey, is there an idea or something you could do? I said, you know what? It's just so impossible to say what we're trying to do or what we do in this program in 60 seconds in a commercial. So can I create something on the website that people can go to and at least allow us to quickly say, what the program is about? Because it's just impossible to say in a minute time when you only have that in a commercial. So I feel like I've said this speech 100 times because people walking by my office asking, so what do you do? Now I'm getting those, by the way. I'm getting the same way I grilled you on the first time, I'm getting them, and my wife is getting them, and I have her in here too because we did the program together, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Was helpful.
But it was just so, I've said this speech so many times, so I wanted to just get it down. So now I can just maybe put this on a card and say, you know what, I'm really busy. Can you just go here and listen? Yeah. Let me just listen to the program. What's happening? So, have you done other programs in the past, Joe?
Oh, being a big guy my entire life, I would try every diet that there was, every fad diet that came around. The one where you just ate meat and didn't eat bread.
Right. The Atkins
diet.
Yeah.
I tried the Metabolites when that came out.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried, the starvation diet.
I've done the cabbage soup diet.
Yes.
Yeah, the potato diet.
Yeah.
If it was a book about the diet, I tried it.
And
hundreds of diets.
And I feel like in the past I've done those diets and
some have worked.
I've lost a lot of weight really fast, but I almost put it back on faster and then more.
Right.
And I think that kind of actually hurt me.
100%.
Right. And the best part about the Your Wellness Center diet is it's not just a fad diet. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a lifestyle change.
You got to.
You have to get it into your head that it's not a diet. You are changing the way that you are, the way you approach food and your life.
Right. Are you comfortable in talking about why you ended up having to do this and about the story that you? Because I find that amazing. I've told your story before about just what happened to you to make you say, okay, I need to change my life.
Well. Hopefully I don't break up in the middle of it because it still gets kind of emotional. But,
right.
I was almost 500 pounds.
Right.
And I had to go to the hospital because I hurt myself. And
dude, take your time. I just appreciate what you're doing, and I think that your story is so powerful. Obviously, that Joe, you've changed your life, dude. You look amazing.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I went to the hospital. I had a really bad infection. I almost lost my leg.
Uh-huh.
And while I was in there, I had a doctor that was just there to see my leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know, on a side note, hey, you really need to lose weight because you're about 5 years away from having a massive coronary and dying. And talk about a smack in the face.
Right. I mean, I think you needed it. I mean, right when you were at that point in your life, right? I mean,
right.
And it's almost like a wake up call,
right? And you know, I have I'm a single dad. I have 2 kids, and I was 4 years. I was 3 years ago, so I was only 39.
Oh my gosh!
So I couldn't leave them
right,
without a dad,
right? And you're not.
I mean,
you're alive. And
yes.
How many years do you think you put back on your life? I mean,
boy, I probably put at least 30 years back on my life.
I mean, you look, dude, you look amazing. I mean, and I got to tell you, when it isn't it funny? Like Joe says he was 39. When I met Joe for the first time, I would have never said he was 39. You didn't look 39. Right now, you look 39 again.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you look your age, and
I love when people say that. You look younger. I'm like, thank you.
I just look how I'm supposed to look, and I used to look way old. Look terrible, right? But dude, you got to feel great about that. And
I do,
and it's amazing, and I love that you get to talk about that. Hey, I have a question. Have you found that doctor?
That's what I was going to ask you.
I have not. Well, when I went for my follow-ups for my leg, I went looking for him.
Yeah.
But turns out he was a specialist who only came to he only came to the hospital like once every month.
Right.
And you know, I totally forgot who it was. I know what he looks like.
You don't have the name or anybody?
I do not remember the name of the doctor.
Dude, that would be the cool.
Inspired you. That's incredible.
Is it just like a random kind of thing? Wasn't even your doctor. It's almost like
he was an angel.
I was just gonna say he was almost like he was an angel for you to like just notice and be like, hey, dude, just letting you know, this is not looking good.
And when you're sitting in a hospital bed, you have tons of time to think.
Right.
And so that hit me in the face,
right.
and I had to find some sort of motivation. That was it.
Right.
So the first month when I got out of the hospital, I tried it on my own. I tried doing a diet on my own.
Right.
Again, and I lost 10, 15 pounds, but it just wasn't working.
Right.
And Your Wellness Center decided to advertise on the radio station.
Yeah.
And the host of the show. He didn't need the service. He was he's a skinny guy.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we want to help Joe out. And, so, let's let him start the program and let's see how it goes. And, I said, you know what? I really don't want to tell people that I'm doing this, off the bat, because I don't want to if it doesn't work.
I was the same way because I started doing it in August, and they're like, "Hey, we'd like you to try it," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I don't want to say anything until it works."
Yeah, if it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, you don't want to lead people down wrong. And I said, so after 100 pounds, then I could start talking.
Right.
And
after 100, after 100,
yeah. Let me lose 100 pounds, and then I'll share my story. That's wow.
Well, and then I went in for the initial consultation with Dr. Lovett. And, it was heart-wrenching. My blood work was just terrible.
Same thing.
Hey, let's stop there for a second because I want to talk more about that initial appointment, how that all works in the next part of the podcast. So hold that thought. We're going to get to our goals and just kind of like talk about how that rolls out with the first appointment, blood work, because it's really catered to you. So, dude, thank you. And let me just tell you, I appreciate you getting emotional because you truly... It's funny how everything rolls downhill, and that experience for you has now affected other people. So you are that doctor is to you, you're to me with the inspiration that I see what you did through. And I truly, real quick, I believe you have to hit a bottom. I almost feel like there's different. I don't know. I haven't gone to any groups or anything like this, but I truly believe that I'm addicted to food and eating, and I think it's an addiction. And if it wasn't food, I probably would be addicted to something else.
Yes.
But I think it was food for me, and I believe that emotionally and psychologically, you need to hit a bottom before you're like, okay, I need to change my life.
Yes,
I can pinpoint the bottom that I personally had, so I know where it was. Where like you just sit there and you're feeling like terrible about yourself, and I have kids too, so I can 100% relate to like, hey, wanting to be a dad and wanting to be alive.
That was your line.
And that was
it.
I
want to be alive.
Yeah, like my wife, she was asking me, what's the problem? I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be alive much longer because I feel terrible.
Yeah, you definitely hit a bottom.
So I believe in that. So thank you for sharing your story. So listen, we're going to pause, go to this part 2 of this podcast if you want to continue. We're talking about your wellness center, and this is a podcast of just our experience. It might help you out if you're interested in weight loss. It could be cool for you too.